But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Matthew 4, verse 1. Let's begin. Today's tutorial comprises of making a glamour shot. We're just gonna do something really simple today for now. Now what we'll start with doing is first of all getting an image. And I've already found an image of this woman. She looks pretty ordinary and she looks pretty nice, so I'm just gonna copy her image. You can just copy directly off the internet and just paste it into Photoshop. Cool thing is that when you press new, based on the image that you've copied, you're gonna have the same width, height. So I'm just gonna buff this resolution to 300. That's okay. And simply edit and paste, and you get the same exact size for the image. So let's continue. First of all, to do this little tutorial here, you just need a few basic things. You need to know how to use the Gaussian blur. You also need to know how to duplicate layers and change the blending modes, as well as use the gradient tool. So first of all, we're going to duplicate this image, and you can simply duplicate it by either right clicking and clicking duplicate layer, or you can drag this into the new layer bundle. There are other ways to duplicate, but those are just for them for now. Alright. Let's continue. Problems. Alright, let's go. So now that we've duplicated the image, we can use the filter. But first, let's make sure we've selected the layer. Use filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. Now you notice that the blur, you don't want it to be too blurry, but you want to have enough blur so you can actually get the highlights on the face in a rather smooth and consistent manner. So you can look at the preview button to see exactly what's going on here. So we press OK, and once we have that blur, what we're going to do afterwards is that we're going to change the blending mode of this blurred layer, which you can double click and rename blurred. Yeah. Alright, let's change the blending mode. Now I could say we could use the highlight, which gives this lovely effect here, or if you are just an experimenter, you can just click normal on the blending options and scroll down until you get a desired blending option effect. Now the lighten one is really nice because it really highlights the white areas, makes it more bold. As you can see, your eyes are a lot more shiny than they would normally be if it were on a blending mode. And keep going, screen, color dodge. Yeah. You also have lighter color as well, which kind of gives you the same effect as lightening. You also have overlay, soft light, hard light, vivid light, and the list keeps going down and down some more. Well, like I was saying, let's just use one of these, probably overlay. Overlay is really nice. So I'll use hard light for this one. If you find that there's too much brightness in there, you can always lower the opacity, right? But I think it's fine, so I'm just going to leave it at 100%. Now the blending modes, based on the layers at the bottom, they kind of calculate how the pixels on top of each other interact. So different blending options have different blending for the different layers based on the color of the pixels. So currently, this is the previous, this is the new. As you can see, it's really coming together. The next part we're going to add is that we're going to add a vignette effect. That's going to bring focus to her face here, and we're going to use the radial gradient. So you click on the gradient tool. Right, remember that the paint bucket tool and the gradient tool are in one area here because they are similar in terms of filling effects. Now you have the linear gradient and you also have the radial gradient. What we're going to do is that we're going to make sure that the gradient is going from black to transparent. And you want to make sure that here it's at transparent to black. You can check that by looking at the foreground and background color. Whatever the foreground color is, it's going to take on that kind of a preset, foreground to transparent. Because we want to start with the transparency inner face, we're just going to put reverse, and it's already checked, so we're okay with that. You can start from my nose and just carry it across. Now, depending on the image you're using, you may put the vignette somewhere else, or you might just put it in the middle, wherever your focal point is. So we can always just play with the blending modes again, and you can see what's happening here. Let's see how that looks. I don't like that. And since I can't exactly find an effect that works for me, maybe you can find one, but I can't at the moment, then I'm just going to leave this out. But I think it would have looked good if it was on, not overlay, but rather if you place it on normal mode, sorry, and lower the opacity. Right. I'll just leave this part out. The next part we can do, right, is that we could decide that we want to change the lip color, right? So I'm just going to do that. Oops, really rosy. So we want a color probably brighter. So rather than choosing a color out of the way, we can choose a color similar to the color of our lip already, and probably we can increase the saturation. I'm just going to take a soft brush, that way it's not too definite, right? And we just put some color here, some color there. Doesn't have to cover the full lip, just in some little areas that, you know, will work. And play with the blending options again, and see that's what happens. Your lip becomes a lot more plastic. Now, I'm not one for makeup, but this is just Photoshop still. A natural woman is very, very much wonderful, just like that. Alright, so one more thing we're going to do, because this actually looks really nice, we could perhaps, if we wanted to, further then blur this. So we go to filter, Gaussian blur, filter blur, Gaussian blur. If you look at the neutral light, just press OK. You feel free to do that if you want to. This is how the normal will look, very, very blurry. And you can always play with the options. This is like deep thought, right? You don't need to add so much of it if you don't need it, right? Now the last part I want to show you, you notice that the background is really colorful. What if you wanted to make just her face, leave her lips out, just her face to be grayscale? You know, some images have that. I want to emphasize perhaps a color of a background or so. Then they would either grayscale the background or grayscale the person, leave everything that is not a part of the person as part of the color. So because we want the lips to be still rosy, what we're going to do is on the layer below the lip, we're going to put in one layer there. Right, so we have the lip and we have another layer here. And what we're going to do afterwards now is just choose the color black, and for this same layer that we're going to paint, we're going to change the color to color. And as you paint on the black, it's actually going to sap the life out of her. I'm joking. It's just going to desaturate her color. So you can choose to do this, leave her lips rosy pink or whatever color that is, and you would have this woman here, and she'll be grayscale, and yet the background would stay pretty much colorful, right? So that's just something you can try. I hope this tutorial has been one that you have learned something. And take care and God bless.